Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. We advertise the show as lifestyles. We advertise the show as community and neighborhood and real estate.
Yep.
But in the last couple of years, the truth is we've focused...
been more community than anything.
Yeah, more community, more lifestyles,
Yep.
a lot of the nonprofits. And, you know, what's in the news these days is real estate.
Yes.
It's so timely. A year ago, in March, almost to the day, I remember starting to binge watch movies on Netflix.
Yeah, it's I think the first time I've ever heard you talk about watching TV.
Yeah, I never did. And we had to stay home.
Yep.
The parking lots in the malls were empty. The stores were on hyper-limited hours. And Moore County looked like a ghost town.
Yes, it did.
People were afraid of the pandemic, COVID. They weren't quite sure what was going on. There was a lot of contradictory information. And I remember just staying home and binge watching TV and working and thinking, well, 2020 is going to be a very unusual year for everybody, and there will be a lot of suffering, and people will be taking a back seat to growing their business, whatever they do. Well, come July of last year, in our business, things really started to pick up. Because of an inventory shortage, which, you know, the pilot referenced earlier this week in an article, buying in Moore County grows more challenging. And it did start in about July, where we started to see multiple offers coming in on properties that we had listed. And we started employing a multiple offer grid because it made it much easier to present to the seller the different offers so they could compare apples to apples without going through 20-page documents of each offer and not being able to see the salient points. And all it's done is picked up steam through 2021, where today working with sellers has become a very unusual experience. And I have a friend and a seller here today, Dorothy Bose, and we want to talk a little bit about the market from a seller's perspective. Jen DeMeo from 4 Properties was on a couple of weeks ago, and we were speaking about tips for buyers and sellers, but in truth, it really wound up being more for buyers. So a couple of weeks ago, Dorothy and I got together, and I want to, first of all, thank you for coming in.
Sure, no problem.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And you moved here to Southern Pines about 2 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. When you moved here, did you think you would be in a position where you were going to be selling in such a short period of time?
We knew it would be a possibility because my husband's in the military, and we knew the turnover was pretty high here, and the likelihood of us moving in about 3 years was about 50-50 at that time. So we went back and forth really up until just a few months ago about whether we would sell, whether we would rent, I would stay, and we wouldn't put the house on the market at all. And that's just military life.
So it didn't come as a complete shock to you?
It was not a complete shock, but the current market is a complete shock.
Right. How many times have you guys bought and sold property throughout your mutual careers?
So we were overseas for a long time. So we had a townhouse in Charleston, and that was our only other property that we bought and sold prior to this one.
And were you hearing from friends of yours who maybe were selling their home that maybe influenced you to sell rather than hold on to it and rent?
Yes. And really just watching our neighborhood, meeting new neighbors, seeing the turnover happening in our neighborhood swayed our decision.
Right.
And then I kind of dug into the market a little bit and saw how quickly things were moving. And we talked about renting versus buying, or renting versus selling. And I said, there's really no reason to hold on to it right now. It's harder to manage from a distance.
And right. And you didn't know for sure if you would be coming back this way?
It is not in our long-term plan, but
Okay.
our long-term plan is only about 10% solid. So
Okay. So having a chance to meet with you and to talk to you initially, my impression was that you were all over it. You understood the dynamics. You were very thorough, detail-oriented, and to a cerebral broker, that is music to their ears, because if you can intellectualize a process and talk through it, it gives us a chance to go through a lot of the things that we coach or we talk about, which we want to kind of touch on today. And even though this is really from a seller's perspective, a buyer could listen to this conversation and go, so if that's where they're coming from, then the buyer, this is where I need to come from to appeal to them. Your expectations in our first meeting was to try to cover as many bases as possible because you had a lot of questions. And have you ever had a situation where you were selling something where something fell by the wayside, or you didn't do your homework thoroughly and you wanted to be fully informed, or was that just...
me personally?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
That's just my personality type.
Okay. And it's interesting to note that, like so many other military spouses, you actually have your own business. You run your business actually out of your home, and you manufacture what I consider high-end children's clothing. From what you showed me in the bonus or fifth bedroom, so it gave you, the layout was great. It gave you the utility to do what you needed to do.
Absolutely.
So you could work anywhere.
Yes, it's it came to me via our hectic lifestyle, but it's been such a wonderful thing to keep myself occupied, and it's worked out so well with COVID and all of the shutdowns. And the size of the house was really important during this past year. Prior to that, I had always kind of complained a little bit about how big our house was.
Right.
And how we could do without an extra room. We didn't need so many square feet. And
Dorothy,
up until this year,
that changed. She has two boys. One is 4 and one is 9. And if you ever want to reduce the square footage of a house quickly, you have 2 boys. And all of a sudden you wake up one morning and the rooms have shrunk.
Oh,
and you go, what happened?
I feel that.
You know, you have boys.
I do.
And they're high spirited, and they're territorial.
Yes.
And they take their space, and then mom and dad are sort of afterthoughts.
Yes.
Right, that you have to live
very
around.
much so.
When I first came in and walked through the house, can you characterize my reactions, impressions, suggestions? As you perceive them? I'm curious.
And we have a shocking amount of stuff.
Yes, you do.
We try our best to keep it under control. After being stuck, the 4 of us, in a house for a year, it has only become, it has only grown. But declutter was your most impressionable suggestion.
Right.
And you liked the things that we had done to the house to make it more comfortable for us to live there and be stuck there for a year together.
Right. Right.
But really just, and it was something we always knew we needed to do, was kind of get control of the spread of children everywhere, which I think we were able to do. And the house is much nicer now.
It really is.
It really is.
In this market today, there are so many more buyers than there are homes for sale. And even though it's a strong seller's market, we still have a litmus test of condition and presentability, because that makes the home look more compelling. And in 2.5 days, you did a ridiculous job of decluttering. I mean, and it's really interesting because Nicola Squires from Carolina Full Motion, who is videotaping this show, had the ability to come in and to shoot the photographs and the video of your home. But I don't think she saw it before, like when I did, right? And I think she made a comment. Maybe she didn't. The kitchen, it didn't look like anyone lived there.
Oh. Yeah, it was not functional for anybody to live there at that particular moment.
For 2 hours.
Right.
And now we're back to where we need to be.
A little bit, but not quite as bad. It was necessary. It was a necessary spring cleaning also.
Okay. So you and Rick, your husband, decided you were going to list a home for sale and speak to some of the brokers and make the decision to move forward. Mm-hmm. What were your goals in doing so, in setting that up? Was it strictly price? Was it expediency? As a seller, you also have had a requirement that a lot of sellers have, that you wanted to put your home on the market for sale, but you also wanted to lease it back till mid-July, so that when you do move, you only have to make one move.
Right.
And so that is a little bit of a wrinkle, but not crazy unusual. So were you looking for the highest value, the least stressful experience? What were your big picture goals?
In my intent to, when I was interviewing realtors?
Yeah, or to list. Mm-hmm.
So I was looking for an agent that was responsive.
Uh-huh.
Responsiveness was incredibly important to me. I understand how crazy this market is.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pick an agent who made me feel, especially initially on first impression, made me feel like they maybe didn't have time for our property or for us as clients. So responsiveness was really important to me. Somebody who had a good vision of how to move forward. It's not my area of expertise, so I was not aware of how to move forward. And I interviewed in person 4 agents, and I got 4 different perspectives on how to move forward. And I liked yours the best. Mm-hmm. And everybody was they all were really good ideas. They were all very professional, very helpful. They had a lot of good advice. Right. And also just personality, how I meshed with the agent. I knew I would be the primary contact. Right. As opposed to my husband. And I wanted to work with somebody who I felt our personalities worked well together.
Right. There are, everything sounds so good from the seller's perspective when you hear multiple offers. Oh, the seller is going to cash in, and the seller is going to wind up maybe getting more for their home than they're asking for in this market. But navigating through multiple offers is a skill, and there's a way to get from here to there, but there are other factors involved. We talked about it. It's not just the price, it's the terms. The financing is very important. And you're a military family, and I got a call. This has just happened this morning. I got a call from a broker in Fayetteville who I know from Townsend Realty. And she said she had a client in Virginia who was very interested in your home. And my first and she was going to come and look at it tomorrow. And my first question to her was, are they military? Yes. Are they doing a VA loan? Yes. Are they putting any money down? She said 20%. And then I said, thank God. Because in a multiple offer market, unfortunately, as good as a VA loan is, and as real, reliable as it is, in a multiple offer market, it puts the seller at risk, because what happens if there's a price war and the home goes bidded up over the list price? Then you have to deal with the appraisal. And surprisingly enough, I would say that more of the homes seem to appraise at the higher price. There are instances where there are shortfalls, and many of the buyers are negotiating that away to make it more palatable to the seller today. But that puts the buyer at more risk. So there are minefields that we have to look at, and that's the fun part, because it's like taking an MRI of the 5 or 6 or whatever number of offers come in, and then earmarking them. One of the when you purchased your home, it was not a multiple offer situation.
No, not.
So it was just, and the house had been on the market for a while. Today, one of the practices is sometimes you'll get multiple offers, and you'll get a personal letter and a picture of the buyer. And generally, it's a heartfelt letter. Some experts say, don't pay attention to that. I don't agree with that. I do pay attention to that because it shows some passion. It shows, if it's not genuine, it will bite them in the backside. But sometimes it's good to personalize, and it's been used as a very effective tool. I've used it. I've seen it used with me, and I've seen sellers motivated by it. So there are just a lot of things to find out. And the other thing that you're doing is so great is you're actually out of town for a couple of days, and you're saying, Bill, here's the home, and have a go at it, so that people can come and go. And we want to talk a little bit about that too, because we moved this up a little bit. So there's some dynamics about the timing. There's even an article that's interesting. They say the perfect time to list a home, you ready for this, is a Friday night.
Oh.
And I said, and I'm one day back to that. And we went back 2 days to do it. Okay. And I got calls, and I didn't tell you this. We got calls the other day asking if they could see the house on Thursday.
Oh.
And we said, no, we can't do it. It's going to start Friday at 2:00. Well, can you make an exception? I said, I can't. I said, we just can't do it. So we got people's attention, and but the article says Friday, but I think that's too late. You need it a day or two before that so people can plan their weekends.
Right. And for us, at least, obviously all of my perspective is shaded by the military and our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we have to plan so much around the active duty members' schedule that viewing a home during the week would be really hard for us. And me being, at home, I'm the one who creates a list of these are all the houses. These are when our appointments are. Let's go look.
Right.
So just to have the extra time to kind of manage all of that and schedule it out with the kids and with my job and all of that. I know for me, it's kind of ideal to have a little bit of planning time. And I know that does not necessarily mesh with how hot this market is, but that's just reality. Certain things can't be bent.
That's why you would be a good broker. You're organized. We're going to come back in the second set. We're talking with Dorothy Bose. We're talking about our market more from a seller's point of view today, and maybe indirectly there'll be some information the buyers can listen to, because this is not something that's normally presented. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second set of All Things Moore County. Our guest is Dorothy Bose. She's a seller in Moore County right now, and I know a lot of people, Dorothy, who live in Moore County, who say, Bill, this would be a great time for me to sell, but they have nowhere to go because they're staying in Moore County. You are moving out of state. So a lot of people are sort of like looking at the market and saying, "Gosh, I wish I had more homes to sell." As long as this inventory situation remains the way it is, so we're going to wind up looking at a myriad of offers, all with different angles. What, in looking at the offers, and I'll just throw this at you, will not prompt you, aside from the price, what are the most important considerations that are most important to you as a seller that it'll influence which way you go with an offer?
So for us personally, in this particular situation, it would be the leaseback option.
Yep.
Because it's a necessity right now for us. Outside of that, there were a lot of things I had not considered about an offer until you had, given me that information and shown me the matrix and
Yep.
and why, and explained to me why certain things in an offer are better or more important than others.
Right.
And it was extremely informative because I am a novice and I didn't know that more than just the price was important.
The concept of skin in the game in a multiple offers environment is really important, because in a normal market where it's balanced, we used to have VA buyers who would make an offer on a home. They would do 100% financing. They would have a pre-qualification letter. They did their homework. They had good credit, and they would also ask to load closing costs into their offer to have them paid for. So they had good credit and not a lot of cash. And many of them would put due diligence money down between $0 and $500. In today's market, it's a non-starter, unfortunately, for a lot of qualified buyers. That's why they're begging for more inventory to come on the market. If the buyer doesn't have skin in the game, the buyer can back out within the parameters of the due diligence inspection period, and all you are left with as a seller is the due diligence money. That's it. You can't go after them. They're not breaching the contract. But today, we talked with Jen DeMeo a few weeks ago. We had a home where one of the buyers, there were 8 or 9 offers, they offered $40,000. Did I tell you this?
Yeah.
In due diligence?
Yeah, which is mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. So who cares about what is going to happen with the appraisal if somebody is putting $40,000 down? So the offer price is one part of it. It's the most dramatic part. But the financing, the amount of due diligence a buyer puts down is more important at this point than the earnest money, because the earnest money belongs to the buyer, and they get it back if they back out during the inspection period. We had a broker contact us and asked how flexible you would be on a mid-July leaseback. In other words, could you bump it up 2 weeks? I said no.
Oh, I maybe
You might change
could.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I maybe could. There's some flexibility in there.
Okay. Sometimes people will say they'll set a parameter, or you'll set the parameter, and something might come in because they don't want to move twice either coming in.
Right, of course.
It works both ways. So my guess is you're going to have a lot of different choices, different flavors, so to speak, and we'll test your philosophical discipline as to what is best for your family, and you get the ability, I think, to choose what best fits your psyche. It's not always been like this. 21 years in the business, I've seen ups and downs, but due diligence is very important to a seller, or will certainly want to know what they're putting down as skin in the game, or down payment is very important. And the condition of your home, you're like the ideal seller because you are type A and you would see something wrong and you want to fix it. And that told me that your approach is you're going to do the right thing. If you're going to be the beneficiary of an offer that exceeds a price. Did we talk about eBay?
No.
We didn't?
No.
So have you ever done an auction on eBay? Do you ever sell anything of your product on eBay?
No.
Okay. Okay. That was like a no with an added. Like,
No, I only because I work for clients who have stores. I don't sell directly.
oh, gotcha. So they might sell it on eBay.
They have their own boutiques, their online boutiques, so they have their websites and their online presence. So, but I don't do any of the direct customer work. I just work with my manufacturing client.
Gotcha. So on eBay, you'll see an item and you'll see a reserve price. Mm-hmm. And they'll say the bidding starts in 2 hours or in 5 minutes or whatever. And the reserve price is sort of like the baseline, and it's kind of like the list price on a home these days. And then people come in and they make offers and they seem to bid it up. So it's no different than an eBay type auction. But we talked about even in a multiple offer market, in a seller's market, why it's so important to price your home compellingly and not to take advantage of the market overpricing it.
Right. And I took that into consideration when I picked an agent because I had interviewed 4 agents and gotten 4 different list prices, and
Right.
you were not the highest, and I didn't, and that wasn't a negative for you. I was looking at averages and weighting,
Yep.
How many agents said, had overlap versus didn't. Because of course, as a seller, you don't want to price yourself out of being competitive or being compelling or having people want to come even see your house. So it was important to have different perspectives on the pricing.
Yep.
There are a lot of agents here in this area, more so than probably some other areas. And
Right.
and to get the 4 different numbers for list price was an interesting exercise, and I think it's a necessary exercise, and I think buyers it would be to their benefit to meet with more than one agent.
Yes. And what I liked about you is that you did your homework and you have so you're like me, you're a to-do list person. Mm-hmm. It might not be on paper, but it's in your brain, mm-hmm. and you have these things you have to check off. And it's a good way because you narrow it down, then you kind of go forward and you don't look over your shoulder. So multiple offers come in. Then you get to sit down and look at them all, and you have choices as a seller. And a seller has a lot of choices that they can make. They can accept the best offer that's on the table. They can issue a counter offer to one buyer or more than one buyer. They can ask, and this happened to me a couple of days ago, they ask all the buyers to submit their highest and best offer. So there was a situation where there were 16 offers on a home.
My goodness.
Just last week. And my client made an offer approximately $20,000 above the ask price, offered to lease back to the owners for 2 months at no charge. They did everything except offer to cook dinner for them. And what else did they do? They put up a couple of $1,000s in due diligence money, and there were 15 other offers. 15. And so the agent, who was very good, who I have a lot of respect for, said the sellers decided to go back to all of the buyers for their highest and best. And I was caught off guard. And my clients did not get it. And the number one reason they did not get it was because they were doing 100% financing with the VA, even though he's a physician, even though he qualified for much more. When the seller has such a choice, and they sent a beautiful letter, but they didn't get it. And my heart goes out to a lot of buyers, as I'm sure yours will.
It already does.
Yeah.
It really already does.
Yeah, you have that empathetic string in you, I think, and it's going to happen. Or you can pick one buyer and go back and negotiate with that one buyer. So you have choices, and the buyers have to understand what possibilities are out there, because people are saying, I hope and I pray that this is going to come through. And unfortunately, hopes and prayers in this market don't stand as much of a chance as the numbers, and it's hard. So your empathetic tendencies are going to start kicking in, I think, in a couple of days.
Yeah. And I think back to when I was a buyer, and we bought in a buyer's market.
That's right.
It was not competitive at all.
That's right.
At that time.
That's right.
And how much stress I was under. Just there's so much emotion that goes into purchasing a home and having stability for your kids, and I don't think that's lost on anyone, especially military personnel who are moving in and out of this area. You know, we all know the chaos, and we get to know it a lot more frequently than a lot of people. You
also ascertained both the indoor and the outdoor living environment of that property before you made that decision.
Absolutely.
But I want to talk to you in the next set, because the home that you bought was not in tip-top condition at the time you purchased it. And you did a lot of significant improvements, and we want to talk a little bit about them and why it helps you for positioning in this market today. Dorothy Bose is my guest. She's a seller. We're just trying to get as much information out to sellers and to buyers as to how to deal with this limited market that we're in right now. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County. We're talking all about the real estate market from a seller's perspective. And it is compared to what it was like in 07 and 08, we have certainly flipped the script right now in inventory due to a lot of things, the pandemic being one of them, the demand being increased because of the influx of military families being another one of them, and the low interest rate environment, which makes it much more attractive for buyers to purchase a home, perhaps at a price point that they may not have entertained prior to this, because it's no longer about the number on the home as much as it is about the principal and interest that they're paying at a reduced rate of interest, and then comparing that to rental property. And then it sort of softens the blow. But Dorothy, you're in the envious position of being on the right side of the equation right now. Come back in 2 years and see who knows?
Really?
We don't know. But I'd like to flip the script on you a little bit, because you and I have talked a lot, and had conversations about all the different dynamics. So now, knowing what you know as a seller, pretend you're a buyer. And we're out looking at homes, and you wind up being in a multiple offer situation. What are you going to emphasize? What becomes important to you?
Making sure that I have, enough liquidity to provide high due diligence.
Right.
And that I have, on the buying side, I think it's probably even more important right now to have a really responsive agent, and has an agent that really knows what your priorities are, that you feel comfortable contacting all the time, like I contact you. And, somebody who is going to negotiate well
Right.
on my behalf.
Right.
And that will explain things to me. I really appreciate and understanding that that's my personality type, and some people don't want all of the information. They want somebody else to handle that. But if you do want the information, having an agent that will provide that for you,
Right.
and that will explain things to you sometimes in layman's terms.
Yeah.
But I would really start, concentrating on my letter to the
Right.
seller.
Right.
I would want to make a personal appeal,
Right.
especially as a military family.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's really important whether the seller is military or not. I think it holds gravity. So I wouldn't want to be a buyer right now.
Right.
I have a lot of empathy for
Yeah.
the situation that exists and realize the significant imbalance.
I've told the story before on the show. When I was just out of college or in college, my parents were putting the home we grew up in on the market. And I was like so offended. They were selling my home.
Mm-hmm.
How could you do that? You didn't even consult me. And my parents got a couple of offers, and my dad wanted to go with the highest one, and my mother did not, because she connected with the buyer. In those days, the buyers and sellers met. She said to me, it means something who you sell your home to. And I think you're maybe saying that a little bit.
Absolutely.
If it's another military family.
Well, I think that having the military perspective gives you more empathy to begin with.
Right.
I think for all situations, not necessarily to only want to sell to another military family, but understanding, I feel like we experience this situation far more than a lot of people do, just with the frequency that we move, and really that stress staying fresh in your mind of just wanting to have a nice, comfortable, safe place for your family to live.
Right.
And how important that is and how stressful a situation that can be. And also the reality of doing that from a distance a lot of the time
Right.
can be really hard. My mom had a similar experience when she bought the house I grew up in.
Is that right?
With the sellers, they met, and they were a really lovely old couple in Miami Beach, and they just loved
connected.
my mom, and they were like, we really want you to have this house. So yeah, I've never forgotten that.
Right. And I never forgot, even though I thought my mom was wrong at the time, every year that's gone by, she's gotten more and more right. It's true. That's what happens. So we referenced earlier about this situation where I had a client who made an offer on a home that got 16 offers. So somebody got that home. The seller got a great price for their home in this market, and the agent was nice enough to give me more specifics as to where my client's offer fell short. And she basically just autonomously referenced, a higher purchase price, a higher due diligence amount, and generally a tighter time frame. That's all I needed to give feedback to my buyer about. So we have a happy buyer. We still have 15 buyers who are heartbroken,
Right.
who are now back out there again with nowhere to go. In 21 years, I've never seen this. So one person gets connected, it's like a match, a dating game.
Right.
But now there's still 15, or what's that game you play, Simon Says? There's still 15 people trying to sit in one chair or whatever when the music stops. I don't know. So this is not going to stop for a while until the inventory increases. So you and Rick have a situation where you will have choices to make, and my guess is it'll probably break your heart a little bit, but you have to do what's best for you. And the buyers have to understand that there's risk, but it's intelligent risk. And yeah, they might be paying a little bit more than they would like to, but there's no other alternative or other option.
Right. And I know for myself, when we were looking and we were budgeting and we were trying to figure out, how much house we can afford versus
Yeah.
how much we were comfortable spending,
Right.
and our monthly budget. I think that I can't even imagine the numbers I would be able to consider right now with the interest rates being so low, because we're not buyers right now.
But
So I calculated, okay, based on what we can afford in our monthly budget, this is my range, and then I calculated what that would be in list price.
okay. Right.
And it was, I feel like it's a pretty basic, numbers to run, but it's important.
One of the things you did owning the home for about 3 years was you took it as an asset and you improved it. And you did a couple of meaningful things that make a difference. And probably, had you not done anything and said, I'm just going to live here and whatever, it would have affected the price you would have put the home out there for. But you took a lot of pride in the upgrades, and they were significant. But you did them with the idea that you might be here for a longer period of time?
I did them with the idea of, I really didn't love the condition of the house when we moved in.
Right. Right.
It was tired.
It was tired.
As you said.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and I was not very happy. My husband knew. So he gave me.
So he was not very happy.
Yeah. I mean, he knew there were changes I wanted to make, and it was really with the intention of making it comfortable for myself and and the
boys.
family, and just being a pleasant place. And really, COVID and the quarantine and being stuck in the house for a year and really not having anywhere else to go put that under a magnifying glass, because it became, well, if I have to spend every single day here, day in and day out, and I work from home and my kids are at home doing virtual school, we need the house to be
a happy environment.
a happy and comfortable place.
Right.
So,
and your workplace.
right.
At the same time.
Right. There was no escape at that point. That was it. It was, that house was our bubble and our world for
Right.
a year. So it became even more important to move ahead with some of the bigger improvements we made that we were kind of on the fence about.
I remember showing the house before you purchased it, and I had a client who wound up purchasing in downtown Southern Pines. You got my email about the difference between the downtown and the Sandhurst. Yeah. And that home would have fit their children because they were growing. And the home that they're in right now is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But I will attest it was tired.
Right.
But new flooring, new painting, a lot of cosmetic upgrades, tile, backsplashes, window treatments. You've really turned it into a lot of hardware. I mean, there's quite a few things on the list, and we had fun putting the list together and making it detailed, because it wasn't just lipstick. It was, like, for instance, with the Sherwin-Williams paint, I asked you what, and you, I think, were ready to tell me it was duration.
Yeah.
It was not the opening price point.
No, we
paint.
wanted to go with something. Any of the changes we made, we wanted them to be of quality.
Yeah.
It was important. One, it's got to survive 2 small boys.
Right.
And we also, if we were going to make the investment, we were going to, make a good one.
Yeah. A lot of buyers today, and rightfully so, if they're going to spend more for a home than they had planned to, they don't want to have to inherit a situation that would be a tired home, that would require immediate out-of-pocket expenses. And you've created a situation with your home where somebody could just move in and just enjoy it without having to do anything, which is great. We've covered a lot of stuff that I think is important, and I really do appreciate the time you had coming in. We're going to wind up being in touch quite a bit the next couple of days with the activity that's going on, and I just appreciate your willingness to share, because I think buyers who would hear this I think you've helped them a lot.
Good.
Yeah. And so we will we will talk in a couple of days, and I'm glad you're going to be away in the mountains. You probably are too.
Yeah, it's been a year, so yeah, we're ready.
Dorothy, I appreciate you coming in, and to all the sellers out there, it's not just putting the house on the market and hoping for the best. It's preparing it, getting it in the best shape, and knowing you're going to get rewarded for your efforts. And buyers, I hope they've heard the messages in between the lines. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Bill.
This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week. Thank you.